You say, and this is another one of my highlighted sentences, to anyone with a conscience, sending soldiers back to Iraq or Afghanistan for multiple combat tours while the rest of the country chills out can hardly be seen as an acceptable arrangement. It is unfair, unjust, and morally corrosive. And yet that's what we're doing.
Absolutely. And I think I don't want to talk about my son here.
Your son?
Yeah.
You dedicate the book to your son.
Yeah. Well, my son was killed in Iraq, and I don't want to talk about that because it's very personal. But it has long stuck in my craw, this posturing of supporting the troops. I don't want to insult people. There are many people who say they support the troops and they really mean it. But when it comes really down to understanding what does it mean to support the troops, it needs to mean more than putting a sticker on the back of your car. I don't think we actually support the troops. We the people. What we the people do is we contract out the business of national security to approximately 0.5% of the population, about 1.5 million people that are on active duty. And then we really turn away. We don't want to look when they go back for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 combat tours. That's not supporting the troops. It's an abdication of civic responsibility. And I do think there's something fundamentally immoral about that. Again, as I tried to say, I think the global war on terror as a framework of thinking about policy is deeply defective. But if one believes in the global war on terror, then why isn't the country actually supporting it in a meaningful, substantive sense?
A draft?
Where is the country?
Are you calling for a reinstatement of the draft?
I'm not calling for a restatement of the draft because I understand that politically that's an impossibility, and to tell you the truth, we don't need to have an army of 6 or 8 or 10 million people. But we do need to have the country engaged in what its soldiers are doing in some way that has meaning. And that simply doesn't exist today.
Well, despite your loss, your and your wife's loss, you say in this powerful book what to me is a paradox. You say that ironically Iraq may yet prove to be the source of our salvation. Help me to understand that.
We're going to have a long argument about the Iraq War, we Americans. Not unlike the way we had a very long argument about the Vietnam War. Matter of fact, maybe the argument about the Vietnam War continues to the present day. And that argument is going to cause us, I hope, to ask serious questions about where this war came from. How do we come to be a nation in which we really thought that we could transform the greater Middle East with our army? What have been the costs that have been imposed on this country? Hundreds of billions of dollars, some projections $2 to $3 trillion. Where's that money coming from? How else could it have been spent? For what? Who bears the burden? Who died? Who suffered loss? Who's in hospitals? Who's suffering from PTSD? And was it worth it? Now, there will be plenty of people who are going to say, absolutely, it was worth it. We overthrew this dictator. But I hope and pray that there will be many others who will make the argument that it wasn't worth it. It was a fundamental mistake. It never should have been undertaken. And we're never going to do this kind of thing again. And that might be the moment when we look ourselves in the mirror and we see what we have become, and perhaps undertake an effort to make those changes in the American way of life that will enable us to preserve for future generations that which we value most about the American way of life.
The book is The Limits of Power, The End of American Exceptionalism. Andrew J. Bacevich, thank you for being with me.
Thank you very much.